We need to do things right now. We need to act like adults. Cut taxes, cut the spending. Art Laffer is here. He's former Reagan economic advisor, author of a brand new book called Return to Prosperity with Stephen Moore. And here you are.
How are you, sir? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Okay, so Art, let me first of all, why don't you tell me how bad things are? I think it's on the back of this one. You just give me how bad things really are right now. Am I exaggerating?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think they really are bad. If you look at the deficit today, if you look at the future, what really scares me most of all is the huge increase in tax rates that's going to occur on January 1st, 2011.
Right.
If you know they're going to raise tax rates next year, you move all the income this year, and then the train goes off the track on January 1st, 2011.
Right, so what you're saying is, because, I mean, you were part of the Reagan administration.
Yes.
And, I mean, if we're being honest with each other, you guys helped kick in that recession in '81.
We sure did.
How?
By delaying the tax cuts. Is what we really did. But, well, if you know they're going to cut tax rates next year, what you do is you defer income out of this year into next year. We made a huge mistake in phasing in the tax cuts, which caused the recession of '81, '82.
Which is
really serious.
Which is the exact opposite of what Obama is doing.
Mirror image.
If Obama wanted to say we're going to let these tax cuts expire from Bush, he just let him. Let's just do it now, right?
Yikes.
But what people are doing is, because he says they're going to let him go for another year, everybody's spending their money and getting their cash out now, right?
Exactly.
Which hypes up the system, makes it look healthier.
Yep.
And then we fall off a cliff?
Exactly. What they've done is raise 2010 GDP at the expense of 2011. And that's going to be a huge tax boundary. My view of the world is that when those tax rates go up, the train goes off the tracks.
Okay. So let's do this. You have 5 steps here.
5 steps to get us back to prosperity.
Okay. What are they?
Well, number one, you want a true flat tax.
Okay.
And this is really something that Jerry Brown ran on in 1992. It gets rid of all federal taxes except for sin taxes, and just has 2 flat rates, one on business net sales and one on personal unadjusted.
What is a flat tax?
It's basically one rate on business.
No, I mean, what are you saying? What number?
It's about 11.5%. You can make it a little higher if you want to, but 11.5% will do it, because
wait. You're going to pay for all the stuff we have?
Yeah.
With 11.5%?
Yeah. Well, you're taxing GDP twice.
Okay.
You're taxing it at the business level and at the individual level.
Mm-hmm.
So that ends up to about 23%. Then you've got some sin taxes in there. Mm-hmm. And then you've got a couple of deductions that bring it back down. But that's the static revenue neutral tax. No Laffer curve on this one, I promise you.
Okay. All right. So flat tax. People will say, and I've got on my chalkboard over here, we're doing dueling chalkboards today, America. Riddle me this. Why not just raise taxes? Because that's what everybody will say. Will you explain the Laffer curve?
Sure, I would love to. I mean, you can't balance the budget on the backs of the unemployed. You just can't. So therefore, people won't hire other people unless they can make a profit. And if you don't let them make profits, they won't hire the people. The people will be unemployed, and you'll have huge deficits. I hope that people understand, but if you tax people who work and you pay people who don't work, don't be surprised if you get a lot of people not working. And that's where you get your huge deficits. If we didn't have the unemployment rate we have today, we would have a lot lower deficit. And that's why you can't raise taxes on people who work. You really can't.
And not just people who work, but people who create the jobs.
Yeah, but to employ and all the other resources.
Okay.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Now, this is, Reagan came in, and he reduced it from, what, 70%?
70% on unearned income to 50% initially, and then 28% finally.
Now, but there were loopholes in there.
Yeah, but he got it down to 28% at the end.
Right. Without the loopholes. So this was a closer real...
Very close to a real flat tax.
Correct. Okay. So we went from 70 to 28%. But this is the part that he didn't do. And this is the part, quite honestly, that George Bush didn't do either.
No.
Nobody does
they
this
don't.
part. And this is the problem.
That is the problem. That's part of the problem. I mean, the tax rates are also a very serious problem.
Well, this doesn't make us competitive. If you have high tax rates, then people create jobs elsewhere.
Yes, they'll leave.
Correct. Spending restraint, though, is the trouble we're in.
Yes, there are 2 things you need on spending restraint. What you said earlier you need, but you also need a good economy. It's really hard to cut spending when people are out of work. But if you get growth, if you reduce the unemployment rate, you reduce welfare, you get people going off naturally, and then you can really bring spending down if you've got the ability and the political will to do it.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Sure.
You have 11%?
11.5%, but
11.5% tax.
Yep.
Okay? Flat tax.
Yes.
Right now, you have 50% of Americans, they're not paying anything. Nothing.
Oh, this includes all taxes. It includes your payroll tax, both employer and employee. It includes your Medicare, Medicaid taxes. It includes your estate tax. It includes capital gains tax. It includes corporate taxes. It includes excise taxes. It includes tariffs.
This is it.
It's all federal taxes. All of them, 100%.
So I don't have,
except for sin taxes.
SSI coming out of my paycheck?
Nothing.
I don't have the payroll tax?
None.
I got nothing.
Nothing except for this flat tax and the sin taxes. I guess Americans don't like drunk people shooting each other while they're smoking.
Holy cow. Okay. Well, that's I got to tell you.
That would do it.
That would convince 50% of the American
That
people.
really would. And Jerry Brown in the primary in 1992 went from 8th in the race to 2nd in the race. I think he would have beaten Clinton, frankly. In New York, we were picking right up on Clinton until he announced Jesse Jackson's his running mate. And then he stopped.
And this was his?
That was his. Exactly that. I worked and did that whole thing for Jerry.
Okay. Cut the size of government. Look at the size of government here. We've got over 2 million employees. We have all of this. I mean, this is just insanity.
Yeah. If you see the wages you paid, if you see what this government... I mean, what are we doing owning the auto industry? What are we doing owning the insurance industry, IG? What are we doing owning, investment banking, salaries?
But you have 2 million employees. That's not counting the post office.
Yeah,
I
know.
2 million employees right now.
Yes.
The federal government, I mean, the employees right now, that's the only reason why we're not hemorrhaging even more jobs is because we're hiring them into the federal government. Okay? How do you convince people who have jobs? The average person has, in the private sector, has about a $40-some-thousand job. The average person in the government sector
higher
is $73,000.
Yeah, right.
Okay? And they got great benefits and everything else. How do you convince them that they should get, their jobs should be eliminated?
Well, you probably don't convince all those government workers that their jobs should be eliminated, but what you got to really do is appeal to the electorate. And people deserve the governments they get. And if people want to tolerate that type of feather bedding and waste, that's their choice. But my view is that the government doesn't need to be doing all these projects. It doesn't need to be doing... What I would do, if you really push me to the wall, is when you put congressmen and senators into office, all right, if they did a really good job and the unemployment rate came down and the inflation rate came down and the economy prospered, I'd pay them more. In fact, I'd put them on commission. Is what I'd honestly...
They don't understand that.
What, they'd love it if they got the pay.
No, but they wouldn't understand it because it's capitalist.
I know.
It's a capitalist
But they
system.
would love it. That's what I do. I put them on commission, and I think you really get a good surprise.
When we come back, hang on just a second. When we come back, here's 2 more questions. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and job creation. Job creation. Back with Art Laffer in a second. Return to Prosperity is the name of the book from the authors of End of Prosperity, and it's got a quote from me on it. It says, Laffer and Moore are my 2 favorites. They're the rarest of economists. They actually make sense. True. So, Art, I want to go here on Medicare and Medicaid, Social Security. It's absolutely unsustainable.
It is. Totally.
But nobody will deal with this. This is the real killer, is it not?
Yeah, but they will deal with it. When it gets critical enough, they do. I mean, with Social Security, we dealt with it in the Reagan administration. When we came in,
I think... you moved it from 65 to 67.
Yeah, but that's what we do. Is
yeah, I know.
What you said.
What is it going to take? What is it going to take for us to say, look, let's slave it to lifespan, or do what we did. Nobody, you know this. FDR, nobody intended.
No.
Nobody was going to get that money, right?
And the tax rate was 1% employer and 1% employee payroll tax.
Right. And it was for the people who just lived beyond their years, and they were mainly women, and they were alone, and we wanted to take care of them.
And that makes perfect sense.
So how do we get from... Really, honestly, this is retirement money now. Everybody is, they've totally taken it and turned it upside down. This is, I'm going to move to Florida. That's not going to happen anymore.
No, you're completely correct. What you have to do is go through the legislation carefully. And if you go through it carefully and you take things like age and dependency and need and all that into account, you can really get that plan very down to a defined contribution plan, which is really what you want to do. And then you have a welfare component for people who can't help themselves.
Right. What you're saying, a defined pension plan is, I put my money in.
You put your money in.
Right.
You have a government option there or private options where you have IRAs, KIOs, 401ks, or all these private savings.
Well, they'll say, well, you can't have a private, this is one I love, can't have a private option because look how much money you would have lost in the stock market. But this isn't real. This is bogus. Look what we're doing to the country.
I know. That's why we lost it.
Right. I mean, okay, and the job creation.
It's ridiculous.
Right? It used to be that we used to be able to cut taxes and create jobs.
Yes.
We still can.
Yes.
But because of our spending, we've got to do both this time.
That's correct. We have to do both. And creating jobs is no great difficulty. By the way, you really want to create productive jobs. If I were to put one thing in there, an adjective, is that make it productive. You don't want to dig ditches. You don't want to dig ditches and fill them up again.
Did you see the?
That's what they did in the Depression.
Did you see what the president did today? President was speaking, and saying, we want to start building new nuclear power plants.